Foreword number 2. What if? If you want to share a story or an experience, it's essential to start from the beginning. Otherwise, the reader might miss the reasons behind your actions, leaving them confused about your choices and the motivation behind sharing the story. In simpler terms, others may not comprehend the rationale behind your actions, and crucially, they may not grasp the motivation behind your decision to communicate it. In my case, I did what I did out of curiosity and a persistent what-if mindset when faced with decisions. I always wondered about the outcomes of unconventional choices that went against societal norms. I concluded that the best way to understand the consequences was to act on these impulses without overthinking, especially when you find yourself at an age similar to mine at the time, where there's someone willing to support or help clean up any mess you did. While it may sound cliché, I've learned that it's better to regret something than to wonder what might have happened if you didn't take the chance. I've heard too many people express regret about not seizing opportunities, and I want to avoid falling into that category by being proactive in my choices. This isn't limited to just romantic decisions, but extends to various life choices, because, ultimately, what matters is the combination of choice and action. When presented with new opportunities, I never hesitated. Whether it was that peculiar feeling between my thighs in the presence of an older man checking me out, I always questioned, what if, and embraced the chance. Now you might be curious about the first time I asked myself, what if? It happened when I was 16, on a cold December morning. I had skipped school with a friend, figuring we could go unnoticed with Christmas around the corner. We spent the morning in a downtown cafe, feeling like rebels and giggling away the hours. Despite initial nervousness about being caught, no one we knew appeared. That's when we noticed a gentleman checking us out, attempting to feign interest in his newspaper. My friend joked he could be a weirdo, but he turned out to be a harmless guy, just checking us out, a common behavior rooted in biology. We found it amusing that he was older than our parents and even my granddad. The man noticed our laughter, smiled, and, seizing an opportunity, when my friend went to the restroom, he made his move. He rose from his seat and approached me with a smile. I found myself staring at him, likely wearing a puzzled expression. It's worth mentioning that my attire wasn't particularly provocative. It was December, and I was dressed in jeans, boots, a sweatshirt, and a coat I hadn't removed due to my sensitivity to cold weather, even indoors. The stranger stood before me, maintaining his smile and locking eyes with me. He slightly leaned forward. I vividly recall catching a whiff of his high-quality cologne, which I surprisingly liked. Without seeking permission, he extended his hand and casually pushed open the edges of my coat. As I observed his hand movements, it felt like watching a scene unfold in slow motion. I didn't take any action to intervene. I simply allowed events to unfold. "You look better this way," he remarked, still leaning towards me. He then straightened up, turned around, returned to his table, took a seat, and offered me another smile. Like I said, it all began with a simple question: what if? There I was, lost in a daydream with images of him pursuing me beyond the cafe walls. I'd fantasize about him striking up a casual conversation, the possibility of him asking me out for a drink, his voice making the enticing offer, "It's on me, choose whatever you like." In my mind, I'd politely decline, but he'd be persistent, and eventually he'd press me against a wall and let his desires take over. And in this fantasy, I didn't resist. But that morning, reality was far less dramatic. My friend and I left the cafe around 1 p.m., heading home like on any other typical day. At home, when my mom inquired about school, I brushed it off, saying nothing noteworthy happened. Yet nothing felt typical anymore. The question lingered: what if? Those two words haunted me for months, stirring thoughts too deep and intense to ignore. Eventually, I became resolute in finding the answer. And so I explored every desire, every time that familiar itch arose. I rationalized that no harm was done, right? It was all in good fun, thrilling, arousing. I relished every moment. So, why not? April 18th, 2008. Let's get real. My escapades with older men are tales for another time. Right now, I'm about to share a story that required more guts than I had alone. Back then, bravery wasn't in my repertoire, and I needed a co-conspirator to take the plunge. I was in dire need of boldness and a dash of spice, which I hadn't yet mustered on my own. Enter Sarah, my confidante, the keeper of my darkest secrets and the one who stood by me, come what may. Whenever I dreamed of going off the beaten path, she was my go-to. If ever there was someone to trust with my wildest plans, it was her. On April 18th, 2008, my 18th birthday, I vowed to mark the occasion on my terms. While others revel in club parties or intimate family dinners, some discount their birthdays as trivial, fearing the shadow of age. Not me. That evening I chose adventure. I dove headfirst into the enigmatic world of a swingers club, with Sarah at my side. Initially, Sarah was the one revving our engine, but her enthusiasm dwindled as we journeyed closer to our destination. Truth be told, the idea had been simmering between us for some time. We both harbored a curiosity about the secrets that lay within that peculiar den of debauchery. But there was a hurdle beyond bravery. I wasn't even old enough to venture inside. When Sarah first broached the topic, I was still a tender 17-year-old. Unlike me, she had already hit the coveted 18, making her technically eligible for solo entry. However, it was out of the question. We were in this together, woven by the unspoken code of friendship. So we mulled over our plans, waiting for the clock of adulthood to strike. Determined to unveil the mysteries of a swingers club, we sealed our pact with a firm handshake. It was an unspoken oath. The moment I turned 18, we would infiltrate that forbidden territory, hand in hand. While our voices were accompanied by giggles, my intent was unwavering, a seriousness Sarah couldn't dismiss. Days before my birthday, I resurrected our plan, ensuring Sarah's commitment remained steadfast. Though the spark waned within her, she admitted her fears, stemming from the tales and rumors swirling around such establishments. I anticipated this road bump, and knew just what to say. How to coax her back on track. Relentless in my efforts, I bombarded her with calls and texts, determined to hold her to her promise. "You can't abandon me now," I pleaded. "This is my birthday gift," I implored. To ease her trepidation, I shared reassurances that she wouldn't be coerced into anything uncomfortable, and that our sole purpose was to glimpse the club's inner workings. Rummaging through my research, I discovered that no case of assault had been reported within swingers clubs, a fact I offered in an attempt to quell her fears. Additionally, I revealed my findings that women could enter for free, ensuring our admission at no cost. Like a child on the brink of a tantrum, I pulled out all the stops to tilt the scales in my favor. Eventually, Sarah succumbed to my relentless persuasion, surrendering to my incessant pestering. With our sights set on the Tuesday following my birthday, April 18th, we solidified our plans. This would be the perfect plan, a virtually empty club on a Tuesday night. Just the two of us, a quick look around, a drink, and a swift exit. No room for regret or guilt over indulging in forbidden activities. Plus, there would be no juicy tale to tell, no suspicions aroused about our mischievous scheming. We continued discussing the idea, immersed in jokes and giggles as the days passed by. "So, it's settled," I declared. "Next Tuesday we go." "I don't know," Sarah hesitated. "I'm still not completely convinced about this. Please, don't be mad." Her voice took on a whiny tone. I playfully punched her arm. "Come on, no chickening out. We're so close now. If you didn't want to go, you should have said something earlier when we started planning. But now, we're committed. Plus, you have a driver's license and a car, unlike me." The decision was final. It's my mom's car, though. She might not let me use it. "You're picking me up at 8 p.m. on Tuesday," I insisted, refusing to back down. "Tell your mom it's a girls' night out at some fancy place for drinks. It's my birthday celebration, for crying out loud. Just make something up. We're going. End of story." Sarah looked at me, her eyes pleading. "Please." But I wasn't swayed. "It's my birthday present," I grinned mischievously. "Aren't you giving me a present for my 18th? You're supposed to be my best friend after all." Her response came with a sullen tone. "Fine." I jumped up from my chair, filled with excitement, and extended my hand, waiting for her to reluctantly shake it. "We're going to regret this," she muttered, and shook it. No turning back now. On April 18th, my parents threw me the most amazing birthday party. We went to a beautiful restaurant situated in the hills, and the food was absolutely delicious. Despite the enjoyable evening, my mind remained elsewhere. Throughout the afternoon, I received lovely birthday messages from my friends, but I hadn't responded to most of them, and those I did reply to received only a brief thank you. During the festivities, my mom asked what was occupying my thoughts. I simply mentioned that I couldn't believe I was already 18. I'm not sure she believed me entirely, but she didn't press the matter further. The entire weekend was consumed by thoughts of our upcoming trip to the swingers club. And then, Tuesday arrived. I informed my parents that I intended to go out with Sarah, which was true. And we planned to grab a drink somewhere, which was a lie. I distinctly remember carefully preparing for the evening. I chose a black skirt, a fitted cotton sweatshirt in the same shade, with a tank top beneath. Black pantyhose and high-heeled boots completed the attire. No bra, no underwear. I checked my nails, ensuring they were perfectly groomed. My hair was pulled back into a ponytail, and I opted for minimal makeup, aside from a touch of cherry red lipstick. Once I was ready, I positioned myself by the window, eagerly awaiting Sarah's arrival, hoping she wouldn't back out. My cell phone remained within reach, ready to dial her number and let a torrent of displeasure rain down on her, should she fail to show up. I decided to allow a 15-minute grace period before unleashing my anger. If she chose not to appear, I assumed she would switch off her phone, prompting me to call her home number. Somehow, I felt it necessary to convey that our friendship was no more. I must confess, I was growing increasingly paranoid. Constantly checking the time, peering out of the window, I was on the brink of giving up when Sarah's tiny red car appeared on the lane. Uncertain whether to breathe a sigh of relief, considering our plans, I hurriedly descended the stairs. With quick goodbyes to my parents, despite hearing my mom yelling something in response that I chose to ignore, I stepped outside and hopped into Sarah's car. She was giggling, and as I looked at her, I knew she was still hoping I would change my mind. But I didn't. "Let's go," I announced, determined and resolute. Reluctantly, Sarah shook her head, but shifted the car into gear and drove away from the lane. I observed her attire, appreciating her choice to maintain a low-profile appearance. It seemed she aimed for a casual look rather than something overtly sexy. She wore dark silk pants, cinched with a black leather belt, featuring a large silver buckle. Her feet donned black Nike sneakers, while a white shirt draped her body. Her light brown hair cascaded loosely over her shoulder. In my mind, I reviewed our plan. I had meticulously selected a swingers club online, a venue situated at a reasonable distance about an hour's drive away. I figured the chances of encountering anyone from our hometown on a Tuesday evening were slim. During the journey, conversation was sparse. Sarah focused on driving while I attempted to ease her nerves. I reassured her that everything would be all right and emphasized that we would exit the club as soon as we had gotten a glimpse of the interior. Eventually, we arrived at the club, a meticulously restored country house. A short, unpaved road led us to the entrance, where a small parking lot awaited. The building stood far enough from the main road, concealed by strategically planted trees that aimed to preserve the privacy of its patrons. I was certain we hadn't gotten lost, as I had extensively perused the club's website, which included detailed directions for those arriving by car. Images of the exterior were also available, confirming the accuracy of our location. No doubts remained. Only 2 cars were parked out front, presumably belonging to the owners. Sarah parked our vehicle, and together we approached the entrance. A brass plate on the right showcased the club's name, meticulously etched into its surface. Beneath it, a plastic plate displayed the establishment's opening hours, 9 p.m. to 3 a.m., and its designated day of closure, Wednesdays, a fact I had verified beforehand. Positioned below both plates, a buzzer awaited our touch. We exchanged glances. "Ring the buzzer," I instructed. "Not my idea," Sarah retorted. "It's my birthday," I reminded her. "Your birthday was on Friday," she pointed out. "That was 4 days ago." Gazing intently at me, she continued. "I drove, and I tried my best to persuade you against this. But I failed." "All right then," I said, reaching out my hand and pressing the button. In an instant, a powerful spotlight illuminated both of us. Sarah screamed initially, but then we both burst into nervous laughter. The door swung open, revealing an attractive woman in her 30s. She had long black hair, a sophisticated gray dress, heavy makeup, and what appeared to be a pair of incredibly expensive Jimmy Choo shoes. "Good evening," I greeted her. "Hi, did you girls happen to get lost?" she asked with a smile. "No, I believe we're in the right place," I responded, returning her smile. "Are you open?" She carefully examined us, her eyes searching our faces. "How old are you?" she inquired after a few seconds. "I'm 18, I replied, pointing towards Sarah, who was trembling slightly. "And my friend here is 19. Do you have your IDs with you?" "Oh, of course." I reached into my purse and handed over my ID. Sarah did the same. The woman scrutinized the documents meticulously. Eventually she smiled, returned our IDs, and as she handed mine back to me, she said, "Happy birthday. This way, please." With that, she spun around and let us inside. Women don't have to pay an entrance fee, but it's a good idea to at least order a drink. We followed her into the club. The interior was dimly lit, but there was nothing about it that gave off a shady vibe. Couches were scattered around, a bar stood against one wall, adorned with shelves full of liquor bottles and metal stools. Colorful rugs covered the wooden floor. Faint blue lighting emanated from a few ceiling spots. Soft background music played at a low volume, allowing people to converse without raising their voices. The atmosphere was cozy, even relaxing. I noticed a couple of poles, but there were no exotic dancers in sight. I presumed they only appeared on weekends. It seemed we were the only guests that evening. Taking a seat on one of the couches, the welcoming woman asked what we wanted to drink. I ordered a vodka and tonic, feeling empowered by my newfound legal drinking age. Sarah requested an alcohol-free cocktail brimming with lime and strawberry juice. I paid for both drinks. Since the lady tending the bar wasn't overly occupied, I decided to pose a few questions to her. "Is the club usually this quiet, or is it because it's a Tuesday?" I inquired. "It remains relatively quiet until Thursday," she responded. "It's over the weekend when most people come out." That confirmed my initial assumptions. I decided to be truthful and explained to her that Sarah and I had embarked on this visit to a swingers club as part of a curiosity-driven plan for my birthday. "It's sort of a challenge, you know," I confessed. The lady, whom I learned was named Laura, chuckled as she prepared our drinks. She revealed that she and her husband had been running the club for the past couple of years. She mentioned that the clientele consisted mainly of affluent individuals who didn't mind indulging in the club's offerings. "We may not be rolling in riches, but we're not starving either," she said with a grin. "It's hard work, no doubt about it." She mentioned that customers were willing to drive at least an hour to reach the venue. "When you have this kind of hobby," she explained, "you don't want to run into your neighbor or your boss, if you catch my drift. So, you choose a club that's far enough from your place, and off you go." Eventually, she joined us on the couch. She proved to be quite pleasant and amusing. Definitely not someone you'd find dull in conversation. "You know what?" she began. "Most of the guys don't come here to have sex with another woman. At least not all of them. Most of them enjoy watching their wife or girlfriend while she is, interacting with a perfect stranger, be it a man or another woman. That's what really gets them off." Even Sarah, by this point, was attentively listening to what Laura had to share. "But they'll just stand there and watch? Nothing else?" she inquired. "Well, no," Laura replied, accompanying her response with an explicit gesture using her right hand. We both burst into laughter. A buzzer interrupted our conversation, and a small red light flashed behind the bar. "Sorry, girls." Laura stood up. "Customers." She left the main room, disappearing behind the corner facing the entrance. Sarah looked at me with a deer-in-the-headlights expression. "Relax," I reassured her. "We can leave whenever we want. Everything's fine. It's not like they're going to attack us or anything." Laura returned with two men dressed in jackets and ties. They were both smirking, and as soon as they noticed us, one of them said, "Looks like we're not alone," followed by laughter. It wasn't an eerie laugh, and they didn't seem threatening at all. We kept an eye on them as they sat at the bar and ordered drinks for themselves. They turned in our direction, raised a toast, and smiled. I smiled back at them, out of good manners. They stood there, chatting with Laura, occasionally glancing in our direction. Just as Sarah and I were about to stand up and leave, relieved for the all-clear, and perhaps a bit disappointed as well, one of the men called Laura and said something we couldn't hear. It seemed like they were long-standing friends. Laura placed 2 glasses on the counter, and within minutes the 2 men approached our couch, bringing along another vodka and tonic and an alcohol-free cocktail with lime and strawberries. This is it, I thought. No worries, girls, one of them said, handing us 2 glasses. It's on us. Good evening, ladies, said the other one. We thought we would buy a drink for everyone in the club. We don't want people to think we're miser bastards, you know. Thank you, I said, taking the glass, and so did Sarah. The 2 men joined us, with one sitting on my right and the other next to Sarah on her left. The guy on my right then posed the question I anticipated. What brings you here? He inquired. It's my birthday, I admitted, opting for honesty, and I wanted to celebrate it in a different way. Sarah shot me a disapproving look. I quickly bit my tongue, realizing that my words might be misconstrued as an invitation, especially in a swingers club. I mean, well, put it this way. This is our first time here. We've never visited a place like this before. We wanted to find out what it's like inside, what it looks like. It's just curiosity, nothing else. Sarah shook her head. Well, happy birthday then, said the man next to Sarah. He stood up, shook my hand, and kissed me on the cheek. Happy birthday indeed, echoed the man on my right, also kissing me on the cheek. Actually, it's not my birthday today. Friday was, but we're here now because I was busy on Friday with a family party and stuff, you know? Okay, fair enough, said the man next to me. So how old are you? 18, I replied. Both men whistled and exclaimed, Wow! And hey now, I chuckled, while Sarah remained quiet, sipping her alcohol-free cocktail. What about you? The man next to Sarah asked. Are you 18 as well? 19, she replied, and this is not my birthday party. She smiled. That's a lovely number, he said, winking at his friend next to me. What about you 2? I asked. How old are you? They both burst into laughter, shaking their heads as if to convey, I saw that coming. How about we introduce ourselves first, suggested the man next to me. My name's Franco, and that guy next to your friend is Aldo. To answer your question, let's just say we're a tad older than you 2. Correct, affirmed the other man. Let's say that the sum of your ages, 18 and 19, is still less than my age. They appeared to be in their 50s, but the age gap didn't faze them in the slightest. My question had entertained them, and their confidence showed they were indifferent to our thoughts. It seemed they wouldn't have made a scene if Sarah and I had chosen to stand up and leave, which was reassuring. Okay, pleased to meet you, I said, deciding not to reveal my name. My name is Daniela, I added with a playful wink at Sarah. And I'm Chiara, my friend chimed in, offering a carefree smile for the first time that evening. And this would be your first time here, observed Aldo. Exactly, I replied. Last week I was a minor, so they wouldn't have let me in anyway. I guess, Franco looked into my eyes, even though this is your first time in a place like this, you're perfectly aware of what happens within these walls. There's no need for any further explanation concerning the activities carried out in a swingers club. People come here to either have sex or to watch their partner enjoying the company of a total stranger, so to say. But, Sarah interjected, it would seem like you don't have any partner to swap, unless you 2 are that sort of partners. Your friend has a sharp tongue. Franco genuinely laughed at the sarcasm, then turned to Sarah. And you 2 happen to suffer from the same condition. But we're just curious, I chimed in. We're only looking for knowledge. That's what we really crave, remember? I blinked and smiled innocently, trying to appear as oblivious as possible. Do you also crave free drinks? Said Aldo. It was kind of you, I acknowledged mischievously. We didn't ask for it. Are you 2 married? Inquired Sarah. Once again, they both burst into laughter. Franco raised his left hand, displaying his wedding ring, and Aldo did the same. Why would we lie to you? Said Aldo. Really no point. We can't hide anything from you. He then lowered his hand and placed it on Sarah's knee. My friend stiffened and gently removed the man's hand from her leg while maintaining eye contact. And what do you guys do for a living? She inquired, attempting to change the subject. I'm an architect, Franco said. And I'm an engineer, added Aldo. We've been working together for quite a few years now. We run a small construction company. I didn't really care much about their careers, nor what they did for a living, and I knew Sarah was just pretending to be engrossed in the conversation. Uninterrupted, Franco subtly placed his hand on my knee. The move was so discreet that I hadn't noticed it until I felt his fingers slowly advancing upward from my knee to the inner edge of my thigh. Sipping my drink, I glanced at Sarah sitting across from me on the other couch with Aldo. She was facing a similar situation. His hand rested on her knee, while my friend's hand was atop his, as if to prevent him from moving it higher. The situation struck me as amusing, and I couldn't help but giggle. "What's so funny?" Franco asked, his smile fading. "Oh, nothing really," I replied, still chuckling. "Come on," he insisted. "I'm always up for a quick laugh. Do tell, what's that?" "All right," I said, pointing my finger. "Your friend can't keep his hands to himself, and my friend, look at her, she's just too polite to tell him to leave her alone. Check that out." Sarah shot me the dirtiest of looks, and by this point I was laughing out loud. "Sorry," I managed to say. Meanwhile, Aldo had moved his hand further up Sarah's leg. She stared at me helplessly, as if to convey, "What am I gonna do now?" "We're all here to have a good time," Franco reassured us, his hand gently sliding up my thigh. I didn't stop him, I was still giggling. He leaned closer, his lips only an inch from my ear. "Do you think," he whispered, "it would be inappropriate if I didn't manage to get a grip on myself?" Something inside me snapped. A rush of blood to my head, a slight rise in temperature. "Like I said, we came here because we were curious," I stated, no longer chuckling. "That's it, nothing else." "I see," he whispered. "You make me wonder." "What?" My eyes fixated on his hand on my thigh. "Would you mind if I did this?" He moved with a swift and purposeful touch, his hand gliding upwards, fingertips caressing the delicate fabric that covered my groin. Each firm press against my sensitive area beneath sent shivers coursing through me, leaving me breathless and eager for more. The intensity of his touch made my legs instinctively tighten around his hand, gripping it between my quivering thighs. I turned my head to meet his gaze, fully intending to demand that he stop this audacious intrusion. But before I could utter a word, his lips were upon mine, a passionate and demanding kiss that left me helpless to resist. Moments ago I had felt invaded and violated, but the ferocity of his kiss ignited a powerful response within me. The pleasure began to mingle with the lingering sense of vulnerability, rendering me unable to resist the allure of his soft lips on mine. His fingers continued their sensual exploration between my legs, skillfully mingling with the fabric, teasing and electrifying me further. The pressure and movement against my most intimate area caused a whirlwind of sensations to surge through me, intensifying my desires. Franco was undoubtedly experienced, navigating my desires with precision and finesse, driving me to the pinnacle of ecstasy. In a heartbeat, the world around me faded into a haze of sensation as he claimed me on the couch. Every inch of my body came alive under his unwavering touch, relentless in his pursuit of pleasure. There was no respite, no escape from the intoxicating intensity that he unleashed upon me. And in that moment, I found solace in the absence of restraint, surrendering to the depths of bliss that Franco orchestrated. Briefly, I tore my gaze away, catching a glimpse of another scene playing out on the adjacent couch. Sarah, too, was engaged in a captivating dance with pleasure, guided by the hands of Aldo. I couldn't help but watch, fascination mixed with a tinge of envy, as he exposed her thighs, his skilled tongue awakening the sweetest sensations within her. The sounds of her moans filled the air, a testament to her unabashed pleasure, as she pulled him closer to her, fingers entangled in his hair, lost in the intimate connection they shared. Everything unfolded in a whirlwind, happening so swiftly that any thought of protest dissipated in the intoxicating haze of desire. No words escaped my lips as Franco's mischievous grin met my gaze. With a mixture of strength and urgency, he gripped my wrist, effortlessly pulling me to my feet before encircling me with his arms. In one bold move, his hand found its way between my thighs, lifting me effortlessly onto his shoulder like an excitable lover caught up in the moment. We were headed somewhere, an unspoken understanding guiding our path. Sarah and Aldo trailed behind us, their own intoxication evident. Sarah rested delicately in Aldo's embrace, a shared anticipation written across their faces. As we ventured through the door at the side of the bar, my heart quickened in anticipation. The signboard above read, "Guest Rooms," a hidden world awaiting our arrival. Laura, the club's matriarch, was conspicuously absent, leaving us to explore this clandestine sanctuary undisturbed. Ascending a wooden staircase, Franco showed no intention of releasing me from his firm grasp. Each step reverberated through me as he playfully spanked my behind, his voice growing husky with desire. "I can feel how wet you are already," he murmured, his words teasingly seductive in my ear. Upon entering the spacious room adorned with a grand circular bed, the absence of natural light cast an enticing ambiance. With only 2 dim lights on the ceiling, the space seemed to cocoon us in secrecy. Franco threw me onto the bed with a mixture of urgency and raw desire, while Aldo mirrored his actions with Sarah. The room crackled with an electric energy as clothes were discarded without hesitation. I stole a glance at Sarah, her gaze meeting mine before a wicked wink passed between us. She luxuriously caressed herself, fully surrendering to the anticipation of what awaited. Already naked and unapologetic, Franco sprawled next to me, his engorged manhood sheathed in a protective layer. His touch danced across my body, still clothed in fabric that strained against the boundaries of desire. His hand glided over my stomach, teasingly pinching my nipples as anticipation mounted. Impatience led his fingers southward, urgently parting my legs as if eager to unleash the torrent of pleasure that awaited. His middle finger grazed the hem of my pantyhose, expertly navigating the delicate terrain of my sensual core. "You left your panties behind," he breathed, his voice barely above a whisper, laden with hunger. "It's my lucky day. You're so soft and undeniably hot." I remained silent, transfixed by the intensity of his gaze as his movements grew more forceful. With a failed attempt to rip through the nylon barrier, he resorted to biting and pulling, ultimately exposing my glistening flesh. His tongue danced along my labia, his lips enveloping my sensitive bud, a delicate twinge of desire mixing with careful attention. Overwhelmed by the symphony of pleasure enveloping her, Sarah and Aldo were already consumed in their own fiery passion. Sarah's body contorted, her pants and G-string slipping to her knees as Aldo fervently thrust into her. The occasional slap against her flushed derriere did nothing to deter her insatiable desire. Lost in a sea of ecstasy, her lower lip caught between her teeth, she contorted her head to meet Aldo's gaze, their connection intensifying with each wave of pleasure, crashing against their bodies. The growls of pleasure became music to my ears as I allowed my eyes to flutter closed, surrendering myself to the intoxicating pleasure nourished by Franco's skillful fingers and swift tongue. Before I knew it, Franco was atop me, his eager hands pushing my sweater and tank top aside, revealing my breasts, ripe and yearning for his touch. There was a delicious friction between his throbbing member and my soaked entrance. His pelvis gliding rhythmically, each movement a testament to the carnal connection we shared. "Yes," I whispered, my voice barely audible. In that single moment, the floodgates of inhibition burst open for him. With a determined urgency, he entered me, his hands eagerly grasping at my breasts. Our eyes locked, mouths agape as the rhythm intensified. His voice, a mixture of arousal and control, filled the air with deliciously filthy words that sent shivers down my spine. "You love this, don't you?" he growled, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. "You're a little slut, craving my cock deep inside you. The pleasure of being fucked hard consumes you, doesn't it? You dirty little whore." His words ignited a primal desire within me, intensifying my arousal beyond measure. Close by, Sarah remained on all fours, caught in the throes of passion. Aldo thrust into her from behind, his fingers finding solace in her mouth. Their voraciousness shook the very bed beneath us, the force of their connection reverberating through the room. Sarah's eyes remained closed, her breaths heavy and laden with moans of ecstasy. As Aldo arched his back and collapsed onto her, their bodies intertwined in exhaustion, a symphony of pleasure reverberated through the air. But Franco's appetite was not yet sated. Rolling onto his back, he pulled me on top of him. With each movement of my pelvis, he matched my rhythm, his hands guiding my hips effortlessly. A symphony of sensation consumed me as I rode him, my fingers dancing over my clit, amplifying the pleasure coursing through my veins. Ecstasy enveloped me, releasing itself in the form of euphoric cries, while Franco possessed me with a fervor matched only by madness. Our eyes locked, an unspoken understanding passing between us. Franco's hands found my breasts, kneading them with a deliberate intensity, teasing my nipples with an exhilarating mix of pleasure and pain. He pulled me closer, capturing my lips in a fiery kiss. He fucked me with an intensity beyond compare, his muscles taut with anticipation. Sensing his inevitable release, I quickened my pace, his face betraying a mixture of amazement and primal hunger. Suddenly, he pushed me aside, discarding the condom with a casual disregard. Kneeling on the bed, he tugged at my hair with a newfound vigor, bringing my face tantalizingly close to his throbbing member. Bullets of pearl-like fluid erupted from him, their warmth cascading down my cheekbone, across my chin, and onto my breasts. Franco's hands painted my face with his essence, guiding 2 fingers into my mouth with a possessive force. Afterwards, Sarah and I sought solace in a shared shower, the 2 men dressing quietly in the background, their hands left unwashed, perhaps lingering to preserve our scent a moment longer. As we dressed, our reflections staring back at us in the mirror, we attempted to mask any trace of our tryst, to appear as ordinary as possible. "Hey girls," Franco's voice broke the silence, "how about exchanging numbers?" I checked my hair, meeting his gaze in the reflection. "Sorry, but no," I replied, masking any hint of regret. "Don't worry," Aldo added, reassurance dripping from his words. "We won't stalk you, we just took a chance." "It's all right," Sarah interjected, her voice carrying traces of satisfaction. "We had a really good time." As we sat in the car, Sarah smirked at me, her eyes overflowing with mischief. "You're quite the vixen," she teased, her face free of lingering doubts, at least for now. "Regrets tend to surface with time. It was harmless fun." I chuckled, reminding her to focus on the road. "And you were about to bail on me, remember? Hey, keep your eyes on the road." We laughed, the electric euphoria of the moment still coursing through our veins. Leaning closer, I spoke through my laughter. "One thing's for sure," I noted, "I never get bored when I'm with you." "You choose your friends wisely," Sarah replied, a hint of pride dancing in her eyes. Our laughter intertwined, a testament to the bond we shared. When she dropped me off at my house, I approached her window. It rolled down, revealing her smile. "Do you want to do that again?" I ventured. "Maybe tomorrow, or in a week," she pondered, her honesty refreshing. "But seriously, I don't know if I want to. It was fun, but that might be it." "Fair enough," I agreed, understanding the complexity of our desires. "Oh, and before I go," she said, a hint of urgency in her voice. "This is our secret, okay? No one needs to know." "Not an issue on my end," I responded, assuring her. "Our secret." She extended her hand, and I shook it. A smile graced her face as she rolled up the window.